Hi folks, welcome to the weekend. I trust you've had a good reading week. And on that subject, what have I been reading? Well, it's been a distinctly mixed bag, I'm afraid. First up was the Ophiuichi Hotline by John Varley, and this was a bit of a bore, fundamentally. And at one point, I even declared that I was DNFing it. I fed up with the disjointed structure of the narrative. I'd made peace with that decision and then found myself with an hour or two to kill, and refreshed from a snooze, decided to give it another chance. Was that a good investment? Was I throwing good time after bad? Well, mostly yes. There was a payoff of sorts, and I suppose I'm glad I finished it, but only a bit glad. Mainly I'm thinking of the week that it took me to get through it, and my lack of conviction in the DNF decision, and the better books that I could have been reading instead during that time. Anyway, enough complaining. What's the Ophiuichi Hotline about? Well, it concerns clones, and it concerns humanity being shoved to the edges of the solar system by the mysterious invaders, capital I, who have saved Earth, in their view, for the true intelligences of the piece, the whales and the dolphins, although that's already happened many years previously, centuries before, in fact. And it also concerns paying the phone bill for lots of useful information that's been coming down the titular Ophiuichi Hotline for centuries. Lilo is one of those clones, and I suppose we can say that she, in the aggregate at least, is our main character. And this, by the way, was my chief difficulty with the book. There were too many clones, all too similar, doing similar but different things, with insufficient clues given, in my humble opinion, when switching viewpoints, making it all quite disjointed. I did like some aspects of the clone thing. It was interesting that the clones developed different relationships with clones of the same other person. Lilo is not the only individual cloned in this story. As is made clear via the various clones in this time, it's possible and indeed common for people to switch up their gender, something which Ian M. Banks, of course, later makes use of in his culture books, although Varley probably wasn't the first out of the gate with that idea. What was worth sticking around for was the reveal towards the end of the Ophiuichians and their true galactic purpose in sending all the information to poor old humanity in the first place, and what they want now in return. But overall, I'm afraid it was a big fat disappointment. This was John Varley's debut novel, and it's on the David Pringle 100 Best Novels list, but it didn't shine bright for me. And I gather it's the first of what eventually became several books that John Varley later wrote in the same so-called 8-world setting. Next up was The Execution Channel by Ken MacLeod, quite a change of scene. And in this book, James Travis works for a company that does work for government and for government contractors here in the UK. But he's also a spy for the old enemy. No, not Russia. Not even China. No, France. Ken MacLeod's books nearly always involve some interesting geopolitical rearrangements. And as I think Ken himself has said, it's the future, but you couldn't get there from here. And so in this world, it's post 9/11 and post 7/7, and the US and the UK are more and more aligned with power and overarching surveillance the norm, and entire groups of people fall under collective suspicion in the name of homeland security. Travis has 2 adult children. Alex, I think it is in the army on deployment in a different flavour of forever war, this time in Central Asia, whilst Rasheen is an anti-war our peace activist camped out by RAF Lucas in Scotland. Although it's an RAF base in name only these days, it's really now almost entirely a US Air Force base. Rasheen is taking surreptitious photos of the base when she sees a strange device being unloaded from something. I can't remember if it's a plane or a truck now, I don't recall. But what could it be? That remains a mystery for a while as the base is consumed in what appears to be a nuclear explosion. Is it a terror attack? And if so, by whom? Everyone is suspected. Rasheen escapes the blast, but is nearby when the police pick her up. James, who's on his way to collect Rasheen, is also involved or nearby in a different incident on the motorway network, triggering a suspicion on the part of the authorities that there must be a link. It's too much of a coincidence. And there's a general feeling of paranoia and mistrust, all against a background of misinformation and misdirection and economic deterioration. It doesn't feel like a fun place to be, and that all of that has the ring of familiarity about it these days. It is, I must say, something of a worry. The Travis family are subjected to all manner of indignities in the pursuit of a convenient truth. There are wheels within wheels. Meanwhile, as you might have guessed from the title of the book, there's a TV channel which 24 hours a day shows the grisly deaths of criminals, hostages, unfortunates, and the so-called enemies of the state. The Execution Channel does read a bit more like a spy thriller than a science fiction novel, although it most definitely is a science fiction novel, and that becomes clear towards the end of the book. It was a good read, uncomfortably current in some respects, and I blew through it inside 2 days. Quite the contrast from the previous John Varley novel, which definitely was a slog in comparison. I enjoyed it. I do like Ken MacLeod's writing, and this is the latest of his books that I've enjoyed. Next up was Heliotrope by Justina Robson, and I had expected to enjoy reading a few of these and then put it down and get on with the next novel. But actually, I enjoyed myself so much that I've near as damn it finished it. I've got one very short story left to read that I might well mop up before the end of the month, rather than just put it away unread. This is a short story collection from the author of Natural History, which I have read and enjoyed in the last year or so, and then others which I haven't got to yet, such as Mappa Mundi, Silver Screen, and Glorious Angels. Suffice to say, I've really enjoyed my time with this book. I'm not always a massive fan of short stories. I think my default probably is that I prefer the longer form of a novel or even a novella. But actually, these are really good. Several of the stories in here are set in the same world as the novels Mappa Mundi and Natural History, a couple in each, I think. And I did enjoy being back with the Forged, that are a large part of the story in Natural History. There's a nice story about a father looking for his missing daughter, and he's helped in his search by a Forged with a particular kind of sensitivity, which is useful in that search. And he finds his daughter, but not in the way that he expected. And there's another story about an autistic child and, slightly bizarrely, a dead horse's head in a pond, which doesn't sound like it has much going for it, but was actually quite emotional, quite affecting. One of the stories at the very beginning of the book, Body of Evidence, could be the script, I think these days, for a Black Mirror episode in which a woman is paid to test an implant which tells her, whispers in her ear, in fact, what people are really thinking. And that's both, as you might imagine, a blessing and a curse. But she can't remove it without forfeiting the substantial payment for her test. The opening story, Heliotrope, is set in a fantasy second world, which was to be the setting for a novel that she was writing that never saw the light of day in the end. And in this case, an apprentice artist is tasked with drawing some sketches of a famed dancer, thought by some to be some sort of god, and so that her boss can use them to make a sculpture. And she is entranced and producing in the process her best work. The story that I was most looking forward to reading, just based on the name entirely, is Legolas Does the Dishes. And indeed, Legolas does make an appearance, or at least he seems to. Lisa is undergoing some kind of therapy in a mental institution, and she's sure that the guy that's turned up for the last few days doing the washing up is Legolas, the elven star of Lord of the Rings, of course. And quite why he's washing up in a mental institution isn't clear. And she wonders idly if he was traumatised by Aragorn's death or something. And Robson does a nice job injecting ambiguity into this story. And what's real? What does Lisa merely think she's seeing? And what is entirely imaginary? In summary, I think there's a lot of variety in this collection. There's also a nice introduction by Adam Robertson, a few pages long, which obviously bigs up Justina Robson's writing and these short stories in particular. And I certainly enjoyed it. And the main outcome, I think, is that I want to give Natural History another go, and I'm also really keen now to read Mappa Mundi. If that piques your interest, I have some bad news. I don't think it's going to be easy to find. It was published by Ticonderoga Press in Australia, and it's not that easy to get hold of, although allegedly there is an ebook, so you might be able to track it down via that route. So tell me, what have you read this week? Is there anything that you particularly recommend, or anything that you'd like us to avoid? Do let us know in the comments down below. Before we go on, actually, just a little announcement. In a couple of weeks' time, the 2025 SciFiScavenger viewer survey will open, and so you've got a couple of weeks now to think about your favourite books, your top 10 science fiction books of all time, and the criteria by which you judge those is entirely up to you. And if you're new to the channel and missed last year's survey, it was lots of fun. It gave me lots of data to crunch, and of course there were 2 or 3 results videos that followed later in the year. So look out for that. I'll make further announcements nearer the time. Channel stuff next then. Subs are at 6,488, which is up 25 on last week. And if you're one of those 25, or if you've stumbled drunkenly on my channel for the first time today, then huge welcome to you. I'm John, and I focus on collecting, reading, and waffling on about science fiction books, old and new. Comment of the week this week was from Mike, who was channeling his inner outlaw bookseller, as he quite rightly pointed out that in the recent haul video, I'd incorrectly referred to a short story anthology as a collection, and I think more than once too in that video. I have since done my penance, and all is well, and I am duly cleansed of this grave sin. You're an informed bunch, so I probably don't need to tell you that an anthology is a group of stories written by different authors, whereas a collection is, wait for it, the collected short stories of a single author. Thanks to Mike for taking the time to leave a comment, and to all of you that do the same. I do really appreciate it. So let's take a quick look at what was on the channel since last week. On Sunday, there was that book haul extravaganza, stuff that I've accumulated over the last month or so, including some charity shop finds, collection gap fillers, and 2 different Lucky Dip offers from 2 different small press publishers here in the UK. My shelves are duly groaning as a result. On the book buying front, it continues to be fairly quiet. I've had a broken binding order that I'd forgotten about has arrived, so that was a nice surprise. Plus, there's what looks like a very fascinating Robert Silverberg autobiography, and 1 or 2 other bits and bobs too. The to be hauled pile is currently a modest 9 books, with just 1, I think, still on its way. As I said, I seem to be slowing down a bit on the book buying front, and it might be that I need to move to a quarterly book haul instead of the current monthly cadence, but we'll see. There's still plenty of time before the next one, so I might catch up. A quick look ahead then. On Sunday will be the time travel video that I've been going on about for a few weeks, it feels like, in which I look at some great books from the last 100 or more years that use time travel of one kind or another as the main plot device. Most of those books I've read and really enjoyed, and then I end that video with 2 or 3 that I haven't quite got to yet. I've also done a little bit more of the prep work. Really, it's more a gathering of my thoughts on the 100 years of space opera video, so that will come. I think, though, that will be a longer video. There's a lot of ground to cover. I think it will be 45 minutes or maybe even an hour. Obviously, 100 years is a lot of potential books to cover. And I'll also be looking at the creation and the evolution, the rise and fall and rise again of this subgenre, this fun corner of the broad church that is our beloved science fiction. So that will take a little while to come to fruition. And in the meantime, there'll be the usual month-end content, the TBR selection video for October, and the recap and ranking of September's reading, including ultimately a declaration of Book of the Month. I do still want to do a couple of career overviews. I have the authors in mind, and there's another author that almost done collecting their science fiction output, so there's potentially 3 to come. Those will arrive when they're good and ready. What will I be reading in the coming week? I'm still wading my way through. I'm probably somewhere between a third and halfway through Chasm City by Alison Reynolds, which I've been listening to on audiobook. This is a reread for me. I have one of my stupid 50-mile races tomorrow, so I'll be out on the trails for 10 or 11 hours, and more than enough time to get through the 8.5 hours of listening that are left in this book. If I do finish that and the mood takes me, I do have The Water Knife by Paolo Bacigalupi teed up as the next audiobook, so we'll see how I get on. And if I run out of time, then I'll simply pick it up in physical book form later in the week. And if I finish The Water Knife, then the next one on my list to read in the coming week is Nostrelia by Caldwell Smith, of course, which I'm very much looking forward to. And I want to make sure that I get to this before I run out of time at the end of the month. As usual, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, and until next time, goodbye for now.